1414 Bayview is a private, exclusive boutique residential building that functions as an oasis in the middle of a fast-paced city. This building strikes the perfect balance between sophistication of design and quality materials, appealing to residents of the surrounding neighborhoods who are looking for alternative housing options. 1414 Bayview is perfection in quality and attention to detail. No stone has been left unturned in this project. Even the smallest details have been thought out and purposely designed to deliver the ultimate in sophistication, exclusivity, and comfort. Why is Gairloch different in your mind? What's the message and essence of 1414 Bayview?
I do work for Bill because I think that he is I know he's really passionate about what he does, and he wants to do really great projects. And I love working at this scale. So these sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-story buildings. And this, as I said, is really the beginning of compelling fabric on some of the main streets in Toronto. And he really gets that. And so like all of his peers, he obviously needs to earn a living doing it. But he, first and foremost, he really thinks it's important to do really great work. And so for that reason, I really enjoy working with him.
What was your inspiration for the design of 1414 Bayview?
The building essentially comes out of the City of Toronto's initiative in this area to really promote intensification along Bayview in a way that is respectful of the neighborhood and in a manner in which can really start to not rejuvenate Bay Street, because it is a very busy and pretty compelling street, but that it will add to it and add to the vitality of that in terms of adding more retail and adding more housing. On the street face, what we were playing with was an idea of scale, materiality, and proportion. So when we think about Toronto, Toronto is an almost completely intact Victorian city. And those are the neighborhoods often that we think of when we think of Toronto, in the very sort of tall, narrow proportions of Victorian architecture. So in a way, the windows that are facing onto the street are sort of recalling this idea of a very stately building, using, albeit with a contemporary sort of undercurrent, using traditional materials, in this case brick, but putting it into a frame, an aluminum frame, that brings a more contemporary, almost like warehouse feeling to it. On the west side, because in the city's wisdom to minimize the impact of a tall building as it backs its way into the neighborhood, particularly the backyards of the houses to the west of this, the building needs to terrace down. So that's an amazing opportunity to put in full-length terraces running north-south across the building. And so you get this interesting building that's not to be really conceived of in the round. It is really about a building that faces the street and faces the neighborhood. So it's two different exposures.
In your mind, how important is architecture to the residents' experience?
It starts with the sense of entry to a building. Often the lobby is almost singularly the most important element of a building as you approach it. It should make you feel happy when you arrive. It should make you feel proud. This is a place I live and I'm very proud of it. Then the units themselves should have a generous amount of view and light and air. And the rooms should be really proportioned in a way that really takes advantage of that, so that, as architects are fond of saying, these units have a lot of amenity. I think when people make a decision to move from a house to a condominium, which is, I believe, will be the case in this, because this is very much a neighborhood building, your sort of ideas of how you live change. In a house, you're more focused on the rooms themselves and the back garden. And you very rarely consider a view and what's it like, because it's very inward looking, and houses tend by nature to be larger. In a condominium, it's more of an outward view. It's really what's around you and what's the quality of light coming in. I hope and think that the way we've designed this building will be very inspirational to people. They'll make that transition from a house to a condominium and say, this is amazing.
What was the design inspiration and what were you trying to achieve at 1414 Bayview?
I think anytime you come into a new neighborhood, you want to pay respect to the people that live there already. And their design aesthetic and their taste in architecture, while at the same time you don't just want to placate to them and deliver like a massive version of their home just to make them feel better. So I think as a developer you're trying to strike that balance between like maybe a more modern, current interpretation of some of the architectural themes that already exist in the neighborhood.
What are some of the challenges that you faced bringing this building, 1414 Bayview, to life?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges in the development industry. Everything from acquiring the site is always challenging. There's limited opportunities to do buildings like this, so it's always tricky. And then getting all your approvals in place. So each one of these projects takes half a decade from buying the site all the way towards completion. So there's thousands of variables along the way, and you try to mitigate them and navigate them to the best of our abilities.
So 1414 Bayview is so, I feel, very innovative for this neighborhood. And I think the response has been so great. Why do you think?
I think this project has allowed us an opportunity to provide an option that previously didn't exist in Leaside, or not that often in Midtown either. With our larger unit sizes, our more unique floor plans, our generous outdoor space, all of these things, and our forward-thinking design and a more modern aesthetic, I think has been really appealing to a lot of folks who are maybe realizing that they don't need an entire home to themselves anymore now that their kids have left or whatever the circumstance may be.
To me, Peter Clewes is a national treasure. He's done some incredible buildings in Canada and also around the world. What was it like working with him?
I really like working with Peter. He's always seems to be the first person I call whenever I get a site under contract or working on a new development. I think we both have a mutual respect for each other, and I think he likes working with me because I'm not afraid to kind of follow through with some of his ideas, whereas maybe some of his other clients have different objectives or initiatives when they're working with him, so the end product maybe doesn't necessarily look the way he would want it to look. So, and it's always nice to have him use a fresh set of eyes to look at mid-rise. It's not so often that he does mid-rise projects, so to have an architect of his stature work on a smaller project with only 44 units is pretty special.
Walk us through the design process with 16 Degree Studio.
Working with Kelly and Stephanie on this project was a pleasure. They were great to work with. Every time we start on a new development, it's always nice to match up a really talented architect with a talented interior design studio. So this was their first opportunity to work on a multi-residential building, condominium. I think they're super talented, and I've been kind of a fan of theirs for a while, and they've done a lot of single-family detached homes in the neighborhood here. So I just thought their aesthetic would be appealing to our kind of target demographic here, and I personally liked it. So yeah, they designed this space here and are going to do the lobbies, the amenities, and all the color selections for the individual suites.
So what was the design inspiration? What were you trying to achieve with working with 16 Degree Studio?
So I think the direction we gave them was pretty open-ended. Like I never like to strong arm key team members into a certain direction one way or another, but I think they just had such a strong understanding of what this demographic was looking for. So it was relatively intuitive in terms of how it all shook out. But it's a modern, maybe Scandinavian kind of understated aesthetic that I personally really like, and I think the rest of the sales team, and it complements the architecture well also. So.
And how much of the outside of the building matters on the inside? Is it a symbiotic relationship between what it looks like outside and inside, or is it very
I think so.
different?
Yeah. I think if you go to a sales center or a development that's been finished where there's a full disconnect between the interior designers and the architect, then it's always awkward. We always try to find firms that are kind of complementing each other, in a unique way, maybe not in an obvious way, but in a way that highlights the strengths of both team members. So.
Even though you look so young, you've been in development for so long, Bill. What do you look for when buying a condo? Is it a big bedroom, or is it a small bedroom and a big living space? What do you look for?
You have to listen a lot more and do a lot more research to understand what your target demographic is looking for from a suite layout standpoint, from an indoor and outdoor space balance, and then just from a design aesthetic. So I think with 1414 Bayview, with the 44 units that we have a ton of very unique plans, both on the east side of the building and the west side of the building at different price points. So we're hoping that a lot of people will continue to recognize that they maybe don't need their 25-foot lot with their detached home, and they can downsize or right size to our project here on Bayview and still maintain close access to all the amenities that this neighborhood has to offer.
Peter and Bill, what was the inspiration behind this beautiful building, 1414 Bayview?
Well, I guess for starters, the reason why I first started looking at this neighborhood is because I was renting a home in Bennington Heights, just down the road, actually on Bayview. So I'd always walk by here with, I've got 3 children, so I was walking by with one of my children, trying to keep them quiet in the morning while the rest slept. And I would often walk across this stretch of Bayview and just realize how underdeveloped it was. And then, I forget what year it was, maybe it was 2017 or 2018, the city passed OPA 405, which allowed for 8-story mid-rise buildings to be developed here. So,
And all of the green spaces, I see you've incorporated on the top and all along the back end of the building. Beautiful trees in the front. Was that just to make it really feel like it was part of the neighborhood? Or where did that come from? Did you see it somewhere? What sparked that?
yeah, so these like cast in place poured concrete planters on the west side of the building were in direct response. Like Leaside has a ton of single family detached housing with a great tree canopy. So the idea here was that you could help provide more greenery on the building for the people who actually own the terraces, but then help protect some of the light view and privacy, which is a big concern for the residents that back onto the development, and it's a priority for the city. So we were able to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone on that front.
It'll appear, when it's really developed, in terms of the plant material on the planters, almost like a green hill, which I think will be a nice, very soft transition between Bayview and the neighborhood to the west.
Mm-hmm.
Describe your relationship with Peter. How do your views on architecture and development align?
Well, I'm biased. I think mid-rise development should be front and center because I think it strikes a perfect balance between a lot of what Toronto is, which is single-family detached housing or semi-detached housing, and high-rise kind of podium and tower built form typology. So I think it's a great way to build out all of our avenues, and I also think we should have other aspects of the missing middle encroach further into the neighborhoods with walk-up apartments or 6-story stick frame buildings and things of that nature. But yeah, so that's what our firm continues to want to focus on, and I think working with architects like Peter ensures that the end product's a good one and that it's something we can be proud of. I often think that developers, like, you should think, like, I have young children, so I often think like, hey, if I bring one of my kids by here in 20 years, will it still look good? Mm-hmm. And what's the materiality like? So I think if you can focus on some of those aspects, I think it would just lead to a more successful city.
Building buildings in this city is a privilege and not a right. And I think actually Bill gets that.
Yeah.
It's about the legacy. What are you leaving behind? And I think it's very, very important.
Thank you so much for joining us for a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at 1414 Bayview. Thank you to Bill, and thank you to Peter, and the whole team behind this beautiful development. I'm Catriona Smart, and we'll see you soon.